The challenge did not say the record was false. It said Rosa Okafor was no one. She read the line 3 times on the public record wall before it stopped rearranging itself into something she could survive, and understood that the people who wanted the Vask debt erased had stopped trying to call the grave a lie and started trying to call her a clerk. 3 months and a season ago, Rosa had saved RR001 from rescission with a catch in the code. Clause 4, the one that said the reach could not enter a false statement into a record, the accord read true. She had welded a Vask witness knot to the filing through a Section 419 attestation and made the truth too expensive to unwrite. She had thought in the quiet after that she had finished. She had been a junior officer for 2 years, and she should have known better. In the code, there is no finished. There is only the next angle. The accord was in reconciliation. Twice a sector year, the registry reconciled its cross-readable records, a slow administrative tide that swept every filing for clean standing and struck the ones that had none, not because they were false, but because the party who entered them had no place in the registry to enter anything. A reconciliation could not call RR01 a lie. Vorm's accord note still stood. Her own attestation still stood. Clause 4 still held. So the Suul house Tcharn, the same recovery house whose claim she had inconvenienced, the house she had been warned remembered her name, had not gone at the truth. It had gone at her. The challenge was 3 clauses, and it was elegant, and she hated it the way she hated good work done against her. A Section 419 attestation was a personal instrument, but to observe a thing in a way the registry would hold, the challenge argued the officer had to be A to the matter, someone the accord registry recognized as standing in it. And a reach liaison officer was not a party. She was a functionary, a clerk in a uniform that didn't fit, filing on behalf of an institution. A clerk could log that she saw a contractor's manifest. A clerk could not witness a Vask, a grief act in an alien register, and make the registry hold it, because the registry did not recognize the clerk as anyone whose seeing counted. Strike the attestation for one of standing, not false, just void, entered by no one, and RR0011 dropped back to a bare unilateral reach note, rescindable, and the reconciliation, which was already sweeping, would sweep it. Supervisor Reyes came to her desk the way weather comes, without being asked.
You've read it.
They're not saying I lied. They're saying I'm nobody, so it doesn't matter whether I lied.
That's the cleaner version of the same knife. Okafor. Tcharn can't beat Clause 4, so they're voiding the instrument under it. No standing, no attestation. No attestation, your not's just a reach note again, and reconciliation eats reach notes that nobody was standing entered. It clears at the close of the reconciliation window.
Rosa had her pen out before she knew she'd reach for it.
When's the window?
Close to this shift. 5 hours, give or take the docket.
Rosa kept her hands flat on the desk. When she was frightened, her sentences got long and grew hedges. When she was angry, they got short and the hedges fell off. She was somewhere she didn't have a register for.
There's a tidy way out, and you're going to hate it, so I'll say it fast. You don't have standing. Nobody's arguing you do. But the easy fix isn't to find you some. It's to let the attestation go, void quietly, and refile the memorial as an institutional reach note, under authority. Loses clause, 4's bite. But it survives this reconciliation as a supervisor's filing, and your name comes off it. You stop being the human a Suul house has a grievance with. You go back to being a clerk who files clean.
And the next reconciliation eats your note too, because a bare institutional note has no shield, and there's no Clause 4 without a party who witnessed.
Reyes did not argue it. That was the part of him that was not unkind. He just looked tired in the specific way of a man who had run the same arithmetic and gotten the same remainder.
Maybe the next one, but not this one, and not with your name on it. I'm telling you which door is which. You've got a habit of walking through the other one.
He left her the slate and the clock, and the thing he was too careful to say out loud, which was that her predecessor had been reposted for exactly this, for being a junior officer who turned out to be a party to things. She had 4 hours in a problem with two true halves that pulled against each other. She could keep her name on the record and lose it for one of standing. She could take her name off the record and lose Clause 4. Either way, the line on the wall that said 6 Vask had died and were not property would finish its slow crawl into nothing. She was still turning it when the dock notice landed in her queue, 11 minutes old, and the floor tilted under her in the quiet way it did when the universe arranged a thing without asking. Tav of Marek Hold had come again. The Vask did not petition the accord. That was the grievance, the whole of it, the refusal that had cost them help when their world died. They received and they were present, and they did not ask. But there was one thing a trade-clade could do that was not petitioning, and Rosa understood, standing up before she had decided to, that the trade-clade had come to do it. A witness held for life could be, and a clade could, with its witness.
Senior Tav of Marek Hold, you shouldn't be here. If a Suul house sees the trade-clade standing in the hall while your record is under challenge, it reads as collusion. It hurts the thing I'm trying to save.
The wall says, the human who held our dead is being unmade into no one. You are our witness, liaison Okafor. When a witness is challenged, the clade does not sit in its keels and watch. There is a thing we can do. I will say it plainly, because you are out of time for the long way. We can enter you into their registry as ours, a witness named and held by the Marek Hold, registered in the Accord's record, so that your seeing carries the standing of the clade behind it. Then you are not no one. You are a party. The challenge fails.
Rosa felt the shape of the gift and the size of the hole it would tear.
You'd have to file. You'd have to put the trade-clade into the Accord registry on your own motion as a party. The Vask don't do that. You don't petition them. You don't enter their procedure. That refusal it's the whole of what you're owed. It's the grief. You'd be spending it on me.
To keep our dead from being unmade a second time. Yes, the clade has waited. It is a price the families will pay.
No.
The word came out shorter and harder than diplomacy allowed, and she let it.
You came here to stand with me, and I'm grateful in a way I don't have the rank to express, but I'm not going to be the reason the Vask file their first petition with the institution that let your world die. That's not a memorial. That's a second grave, and it's yours. Give me until the window. If I can't find standing without it, then we talk, not before.
Tav was quiet, the Vask kind, which was a weighing and not a composing.
You refuse a thing the clade offered freely. That is its own kind of address. Liaison Okafor. We will be present. Find your standing. We will spend ours if you cannot.
So she had her clock and her claws, and now a door she had slammed shut on purpose, which left exactly one direction, which was the direction she was good at. She went back to her desk and she read. The code on standing was bleak and she had it inside 20 minutes. A party of record was a named entity with recognized place in a matter. A contractor, a broker house, a clade, a chartered body. A reach liaison officer acting in official capacity was not a party. She was the institution's hand. She filed, and the reach was the party, and the reach's hand had no seeing of its own. That was the whole bleak architecture, and Tcharn had read it the same as she had. She looked for the catch because the code was nothing but catches, and a catch was just standing you hadn't noticed yet. The catch, when she found it, was at her own throat. For 2 years, a Tcharn had addressed her by her given name. A senior once, in a public chamber, before she had any posting worth the word, not, in a room where the Tcharn did not make mistakes. Then Vorm, twice, both times mid-procedural clause, both times in the same construction. She had carried the courtesy pin a Tcharn diplomat had given her every day since the chamber, and she had never known what either thing meant. Honor, insult, mistake. She had been the wrong career stage to ask, and there had never been a right one, and so the question had become a thing she wore at her collar and tried not to think about. She had spent 2 years afraid the given name meant she had done something wrong. She had never once considered that it might be doing something. She pulled the procedural histories, RR001s, and the older chamber transcript she had access to only because the pin's provenance was logged in her own file. And she read them not as a junior officer braced for embarrassment, but as a lawyer hunting a party. And there it was, 3 times in the most formal instrument the Tcharn possessed, the note for record, the slow 3-finger and under-wrist thumb motion that entered a thing into the Accord's permanent memory. A Tcharn note for record named the EAT concerned, named them by their name of record, and for a Tcharn, in a binding note, the name of record was the private name, the one that meant. 3 times a Tcharn protocol officer had entered her into the Accord registry, not as the Reach's hand, but as a named party. She had read it 3 times as a kindness she didn't understand. It was a kindness she didn't understand. It was also in the only language the registry spoke. She made herself slow down, because the worst mistakes she had ever made were the ones she made fast and certain, and this was both. She wrote it out in the notebook in her own hand, where she made things true before she made them official, and she tested it the way Tessival would. Tessival would say, "A courtesy is not a standing. A senior used the human's given name as warmth, or as condescension, or as a slip. A working tier officer copied the senior. The given name in the note proves nothing but Tcharn manners." And Rosa would answer, "A note for record is not manners. It is the Accord's most deliberate act. A Tcharn does not enter a thing into permanent memory by accident. The species that pauses a full minute mid-sentence does not fumble a name into the registry 3 times. Whatever the Tcharn by it, and she did not know, she still did not know, she might never know, the registry did not record meaning. It recorded that on 3 occasions, an Accord protocol officer, in formal note for record, named as the party the note concerned. The instrument did not care what they meant by it, only what it said. She had learned that line from Reyes his first week lesson, and she had turned it on him once already. She was about to turn it on the whole Accord. She did not have standing because the Reach gave her none. She had standing because the Tcharn, for reasons of their own that she did not get to know, had spent 2 years quietly entering her into their record as a person. The thing she had been afraid of was the thing that made her someone. She wrote the citation. It took her 40 minutes and 3 drafts and the whole of the careful, numbered, unglamorous precision that was the only thing about herself she fully trusted. Then she did the thing that made it real or made it nothing. She took it to Vorm.
Officer Vorm, I've filed a standing citation against the Tessival challenge. It's cross-readable to you now. It rests on something I need you to either confirm or strike, and I won't pretend it isn't strange to ask.
The Tcharn pause came. Long, full social wait. Rosa did not fill it. She had learned that much. 2 episodes of her life ago.
The Accord reads, "The citation states that the attestant holds standing because the attestant is a party of Accord record. The proof offered is that the Accord has named her by the name in formal note for record on 3 occasions."
Twice by you, once before either of us, by a senior of the court. I never understood why. I've worn the question at my collar for 2 years. I'm not asking you to explain it. I'm asking you whether, in the Accord's grammar, naming a party by name of record in a note for record is what it looks like to me, the entry of a party. Not a courtesy, a standing.
The pause Vorm took then was the longest Rosa had ever stood inside. The record wall crawled. Somewhere on it, the cold red line that would unmake her into no one climbed toward the close of the window. The recessed side eyes tracked slowly to the recessed gallery where Tab of Merak Hold stood at rest, and back.
"You have asked the Accord a question. The Accord can answer, and not the question beneath it, which the Accord cannot. I will answer the one you asked. To name a party by name of record in a note for record is to enter that party.
It is the most deliberate act a court performs. The accord does not name without cause.
And the cause?
Is the question beneath. You said you would not ask it. Hold to that, Officer Okafor, Rosa. The senior who first named you knew what they did. I knew what I did both times, and I will tell you only this. A name entered in error is struck within the hour. Yours has stood for 2 years. Draw from that what standing you need, and no more.
It was not an answer. It was a confirmation that there was an answer, and that she did not get it, and that the not getting was itself deliberate. 2 years of wondering whether she had done something wrong resolved into the certainty that the Tcharn had done something on purpose about her and would not say what. It should have unsettled her more than it did. There was a clock.
Then confirm the standing on the record, not the cause, just that the naming entered a party. That's all the registry needs, and it's all I'm allowed to take.
The right hand rose and made the slow, articulated 3-finger and under-wrist thumb motion she had seen twice before. The formal Tcharn motion for entering a note for record, and a new line kindled amber at the foot of the wall and began, unhurried, to climb.
The accord enters a note. The attestant officer Okafor is a party of accord record, named by name of record in formal note on 3 prior occasions, unrescinded. Standing to witness is held. No interlock. The accord reads what is true and declines to read what is not.
She had her standing, and she had it from the accord's own hand, and she had not spent one thread of the Vask grief to get it. Now she only had to make Tsova watch it hold. She filed the standing citation with Vorm's fresh note bound as proof against the challenge in the reconciliation docket, and she went and stood at the record wall where anyone could see her do it, because some things you did where the watchers were. Supervisor Reyes was already there, slate in hand, reading the new amber line the way a man reads a bill he didn't authorize.
There's a Tcharn note on the wall, confirming a reached junior officer is a party of accord record. I have been doing this for 22 years. Okafor, I have never seen the court confirm standing for a human. Not once. What did you give them for it?
Nothing. They'd already given it to me 3 times before I knew what it was. I just read what it said instead of what I was afraid it meant.
You understand what you just did to your file. A human held by a Vask trade-clade and named a party by the Tcharn court in the same record inside 1 season. Every accord watcher in the sector is going to read that wall. You are now the most interesting junior officer I have ever been responsible for. And interesting is the worst thing a liaison officer can be.
I know.
Tessivel's reviewer is going to read it too. They'll either withdraw the challenge, or they'll spend a month fighting a standing the court itself confirmed, in front of every house and sector, and lose. Which one do you think a Suul does?
The one that doesn't cost them face. They withdraw. A Suul doesn't keep buying a thing that's already gone up in price.
Reyes looked at her a long moment that was neither a Tcharn pause nor a Vask weighing. Just a tired man refiling a junior officer he had marked as a problem and was being forced again to mark as something he didn't have a column for.
The salvage already cleared, you know. Tessivel got the hull components last season. All of this. The challenge. The standing. The court. It's over a flag on a map that says people died there. You keep going to the wall over a flag.
It's not a flag to them. It's the only grave their dead are going to get. The Accord made a procedure that erased people once. I'd rather be interesting than be the hand that does it twice.
The contested red line on the wall paled, dimmed, and went the steady neutral of a challenge withdrawn before its window closed. Rosa watched it happen and did not feel the things she had expected to feel. She felt mostly the weight of the pin at her collar, which she now knew was not a question. It was an answer she wasn't allowed to read, to a question she was no longer allowed to stop carrying. Tav of Merak Hold was at the mouth of the recess gallery when Rosa crossed to it, the clade other a step behind, both of them composed in the way of people who had braced to spend something and had not had to.
It held. You didn't have to file anything. The trade-clade keeps its refusal. The dead keep their flag. Both.
You refused the standing we offered and found a harder one. You let us keep the one thing we have left to keep, that we do not ask them. That is a thing you did for the clade today, Liaison Okafor, on top of the dead. The witness was called, and the witness answered, and the witness cost us nothing. Few do. The court named you. We hold you. You are claimed twice now by two peoples who do not claim humans. You should know what that is, even if I do not think you do yet. It is not safety. It is weight. Carry it well.
The Marak-hold trade-clade left first by a court precedent, escorted to the dock by an annex runner who had no idea he was escorting people who had crossed a sector to spend a grief and been sent home still holding it. Rosa walked back through the bright civic hall, past the human height counters scuffed pale at the elbow, past the worn floor tracks where the Suul carts rolled, to her desk. She sat. She opened the notebook to a fresh page. The first line was administrative, because the first line was always administrative. She paused and wrote a second line, smaller. She looked at the pin a while, off her collar for the first time in 2 years, small and copper and old on the desk where she could see all of it. Then she wrote the third line, the one she'd been circling. She pinned the courtesy pin back at her collar because it was hers and because a thing you didn't understand was not the same as a thing you put down. Across the bright hall, on the record wall, the line that named the Vask dead held steady amber among the 4 scripts, shielded now twice over, once by a truth too expensive to unwrite, and once by a human the Accord had, for reasons of its own, decided to call someone. She had spent 2 years being told she still didn't know if she was becoming the warning or outrunning it. She knew only that she had read the thing she was afraid of, instead of fearing it, and that this had been, so far, the whole of her career. Getting there late and by section number and refusing to leave the dead unnamed when she arrived. She closed the notebook around nothing this time. The knot was a season behind her, the pin was back at her throat, and went to log the docket clear. Behind her, the wall kept reading what was true, which was the only thing it had ever known how to do, and which Rosa Okafor had now made it do twice, at a price she would be a long time learning to count.